Hi there, it's Sandy Allnock in for Ellen Hudson today with two things that I think can make a card masculine. Father's Day is on Sunday, and I thought it might be helpful to give you some tips in case you haven't finished your Father's Day card yet. And I'll be making this with the brand new die set called Abstract Mountains. And I'm going to be using the Abstract Mountains die. You could also do the same kind of a thing with the Abstract Sunset. You could I see lots of uses for both of these in making scenes. One has a sun, one has a moon. I chose not to use either one in mine. And then the pierced plate. So this is a cover plate that has holes all over it, so you can do some stitching, which is a lot of fun. But this is the way that the pieces cut apart. And what I was trying to figure out how to do was color them and what I wanted to do. I thought about inking, but I'm terrible at inking. That's just not my forte. But I'm pretty good, or getting better at least, with Copic airbrush. Most people will probably just ink these though, so you would use your normal process, whatever blending brushes or tools that you use when you're using your distress inks or your distress oxides or anything, and color away. The Copic airbrush is connected to a compressor. So it has a gun, you put your marker in, and the compressor is on the floor underneath where I'm working and blows air through the gun across the chisel nib of the marker. And that means the air is getting blown across that and pushing the ink onto the paper. Copic airbrush uses less ink than does marker strokes. If you were to cover this with marker strokes, you would be using more color because the color absorbs into the paper. But also you get a lighter color when using airbrush because you're only using that light coat. So whatever color choices you make, you need to test them out ahead of time to have some kind of an idea how it's going to work out in the long run. Now, one of the things I dove into first when I was thinking masculine card was color. And men don't go for rainbows in general. I guess some men do. But I chose a palette of very muted colors. And I'm going to use each one of the colors that I picked out to start airbrushing different sections of this. So I'm kind of going every other one, if you can picture these all stacked on top of each other. And this one is Y28. This one I'm painting with right now, or airbrushing with right now, is Y28, which looks kind of greenish until you start seeing the YG. This is one of the YG9s and looks very, very different now. The other one starts to look more brown. Everything looks different in relation to whatever color it's next to. So you may want to test out your color combinations on a piece of scratch paper and see how they're going to look together. You may also know that already if you have a favorite color combination, especially if you're using distress inks, because those are going to be in a lot of masculine colors anyway. Lots of those colors do come in that kind of a colorway. And I'm adding in this dark blue-green, and I decided I wanted to use that for a shadow at the bottom of each one. And I was loving the way the colors were layering on top of each other in some of these, and then realized that I wanted to put more of that warm brown into a few spots. So with Copic airbrush, you can just keep layering stuff and go crazy. Now, here is where I made a mistake, which actually turned out to be a good thing. So it was a mistake as soon as I realized what I did. And see if you can guess by the time I tell you. I put down some double-sided tape. You could do that either with sheets or with strips of tape, so that all of this would hold in place on another piece of cardstock. And just piled them up one on top of the other. They all nest together nicely. Really super happy with how my colors were coming out. I was so excited, and worked my way up the whole mountain range and eventually got to the top of the mountain and then the sky, which I had removed, by the way, from the place where I was working because I didn't want to contaminate that with any other colors. And I love how the sky came out in a much brighter kind of brown color because I didn't add any extras to it. But look what I did. I covered up all the holes. There's no more holes left after putting it through the pierce plate so that I could do some sewing on it. Well, that led me to either toss it in the can or figure out a new way to do it. So I took my needle, and I wasn't going to do a lot of stitching. So I just did some holes in a couple of the spots where I wanted to do some stitching. I thought some X's in a line down the corner, and they're bigger than just one block X. Sorry, you'll see this as I move it up a little bit later. I was off camera slightly, but I wanted to do some big X's that would be two colors. So first I was going to do green, and then I was going to do that kind of orangey brown color on top, so I would have a little bit more interest to it. And that's the second thing that I think makes a card masculine for a guy, is keeping your embellishing minimal. Don't get crazy with it. Guys and clean and simple cards usually go together pretty well. And I cleaned this up even further by taking a marker that matched roughly the ink color that I used and went over it, so I was covering up all those little white holes in the word you, which cleaned it up nice, made it kind of tidy looking instead of making it look like it had all those little white spots in it. And it also got me thinking I wanted to put more of the stitching up in this section, but I wanted to see what the sentiment was going to look like before I did. So I put the banner on it with a little bit of dimensional adhesive underneath and then adhesive around the back so that it would kind of wrap around that panel. And then I put some holes in it to do a few X's at the top. So 2 rows of 4 to do tiny X's this time. And I'll do the same thing again with just doing half the X in the green thread. And then I'll change to the other thread. One of the reasons I didn't finish the others in the second color before I did this was because I didn't want to thread that needle again. I have such trouble seeing things. I think my eyes, I need to get to the eye doctor. After the pandemic, I missed my eye doctor appointment and I really need new glasses. So I was trying to avoid changing the thread again. So I thought I'd do my second set of X's and then change the thread once and do the crossbars on both sets of them. And that worked out pretty nicely for me. But having a few of the stitches down in the left corner and then a little bit more in the upper right-hand corner with the sentiment keeps the whole thing clean and simple looking. There's just not a lot of embellishing all over. And I've got a really muted kind of color scheme so that I think it's going to make a great card to send to a guy. Now, I don't send cards to guys all that often. I am an old lady. All my friends are girls. So I don't know who's going to get this card, but I think they're going to enjoy it anyway, because who doesn't need to know that you got this? So I put it onto a cream card base. I know it looks white in the light here, but it's on a cream Nina card base. And you can see all that beautiful stitching and how that worked out. I think it's gorgeous. So I hope you enjoy this and that you're inspired to maybe try a little stitching, just a little bit. Doesn't have to take a lot of time. Just put a few little stitches on a card and add something a little bit special to them. I'll see you again soon. Take care. Bye-bye.